In January 2015, he predicted that Mahinda Rajapaksa will be back in politics and he will be the next Prime Minister of the country. In July 2015, he predicted that Gotabaya Rajapaksa is going to be the next executive president of the country. He is not an astrologer, but he is a politician. So I'm ready to talk with leader of the Pivituru Helurumaya and Sri Lanka Pujana Perumuna, the Colombo district candidate, Mr. Udaya Gammanpila. How come such a precise prediction?
Well, I did not stop at making the prediction. I set it as a goal and we work towards it. When you say, oh, we work towards it, it's an understatement. Frankly, we sacrifice our entire life to achieve that goal. That's why President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the head of state today and Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa is our Prime Minister today. Soon after making that prediction, we started a movement called Mahinda Sulanga to bring back Mahinda and convince the nation that we need him back. Soon after the 19th Amendment, we realized that President Mahinda Rajapaksa will not be able to contest presidential elections anymore. A lot of people are looking for alternative options. My choice was Gotabaya Rajapaksa. I made it public. Then I lobbied our groups to choose him as the candidate. Then we fought enemies within and outside and make it happen.
That's your political part, especially during the last couple of years. But before becoming such an energetic politician, you are a graduate from the Monash University, Australia, also an attorney at law. Are we to talk about that?
Well, I'm the second of 4 kids. My parents are school principals, so my family was with education oriented, education focused. I could remember a lot of students come to my house for further for tuition classes and they get advices from my parents. My environment was really studious. Secondly, both my father and mother, although they were principals to the society, they were very close friends to us. They never forced us to do. They never forced us to what to do and what not to. They always guided us, encouraged us to do certain things and discouraged us to not to do certain things. But they always taught us, you are the master of your future. You have to decide your destiny.
The opportunities were created.
Of course. So with that, I was able to pass the grade 5 scholarships exam, gaining marks good enough to get admission to any school. My father's choice, of course, was Colombo D.S. Nayak Vidyalaya, Colombo. It was very interesting. It was his first check. Where is the sons of Minister of Education was studying.
Right.
Second, he checked where there's a person called Director of Education as the in charge of the Department of Education. He checked where his son, at that time, one Mr. Sumana Sekara. So where his son was studying, the answer for the both questions was D.S. Nayak Vidyalaya. That's how my father chose D.S. Nayak Vidyalaya. In fact, I was also very happy. Its motto, country before self, really touched me. So I didn't have much idea at the age of 10, but I liked that motto. And moreover, one of my cousins was also at that school, so I also gladly accepted my parents' choice.
We'll talk about your tertiary education.
During my schooling days, I was heavily involved in extracurricular activities, and in fact, I was the leader of the debating team, leader of the lot of societies, leader of the general knowledge team, and the deputy head prefect of the school. Despite all that, I was able to secure highest marks of the country at the advanced level examination in the stream of commerce. Because of my achievement, Australian government offered me to study at the largest university in Australia at that time, Monash University. Maybe it is the largest even at this moment. Then I was doing a Bachelor of Computer Information Systems. It's more, I qualified as a software engineer at Monash University. I had a rare opportunity to become a lecturer while being a student. So I had been tutoring classes when I was in my 4th year. Then after being qualified, I had the opportunity of continuing my further studies in my PhD degree program, but I wanted to come back to Sri Lanka and to involve in anti-terrorist politics, because I realized when I was in Australia, we were in a myth that LTT cannot be defeated, and I was strongly of the view that LTT not only, a lot of people believe that LTT must be defeated, but they also believe it cannot be defeated. Therefore, I was strongly of the view that LTT not only must be defeated, it can be defeated as well. So I want to convince the nation we should go for a military solution for the LTT problem. So I was in a rush to come back to Sri Lanka and preach what I believe. Therefore, I didn't want to pursue my further studies in Australia. That's why I came back to Sri Lanka. Then I joined Australia-Lanka Group as a management trainee in 1994. And I was able to become the group CEO in 1996. At that time, I was only 26 years old, so I was the youngest group CEO. At that time, I can remember Hans Vijayasuri was heading Dialogue. Then Asia Cat was headed by Tilan Vijayasinghe. Mano Titwala was heading Lanka Capital Group. So there were several such young CEOs, but I was the youngest at that time.
Then how come you became an attorney?
Well, to be very frank with you, my dream was to be a politician and an attorney at law. I applied to get selected to law faculty of Colombo University before receiving the scholarships. But when I received the scholarship, I thought that why should I learn Australian law? It's not applicable here. Computer science is universal, so I'll go for computer science course. But my dream was to be an attorney at law and a politician. So after coming back to Sri Lanka, while I was working in the private sector, I studied law and became an attorney at law.
Environment is one subject that most of the politicians talk very less about. But in your case, you have been someone who has always voiced about the environment conservation. What is the reason for that?
I have been an environmentalist since my schooling days. We had environmental societies those days. Then when I was at Monash, we promote organic farming, protection. We voice for protecting biodiversity. Especially we fought against mining industry which destroyed biodiversity in Australia. Thereafter, after coming back to Sri Lanka, after entering into politics, when Minister Patali Ranawaka was appointed as Minister of Environment in 2007, he appointed me as his senior advisor. So I was able to shape the environmental policy in Sri Lanka at that time. Soon thereafter, President Mahinda Rajapaksa appointed me as the chairman of Central Environment Authority. At that time, waste was the biggest issue. We launched a project called Pilisaru as a national level solution to waste management issues faced by the local authorities all over the country. Frankly, it was a concept of Minister Ranawaka, but it was implemented by the Environmental Authority headed by me. Then I introduced a separation of the hospital waste, which is hazardous, then e-waste, equally hazardous, and I introduced a project collecting a levy from the plastic importers. We introduced a project to recycle the post-consumer plastic waste. Therefore, during my short stay, frankly, I was there only for a period less than 2 years. During that period, we were able to make a lot of policy changes, and I wanted to ban use of polythene bags in the country, and I advised supermarkets to charge on the polythene bags and encourage consumers to use reusable bags instead. Unfortunately, Supreme Court intervened and stopped my initiative. Then I became the Minister of Environment of the Western Province. When I decided to contest the Provincial Council election for the Western Province in 2009, I was the chairman of the Environmental Authority. So I thought I should set an example by running an eco-friendly campaign. So I introduced a campaign without posters, polythenes and crackers. Those days, people laughed at me and they said, you can't win election without posters. forget polythene and crackers, but without posters you can't win election unless of course you have a huge budget for media advertising. I didn't have that one as well, but I was able to obtain 116,000 preferential votes and rank third. Then it was an eye-opener. A lot of people started to be eco-friendly at campaigns thereafter, and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa made it a national standard by using the same concept for his last presidential election.
Okay, that's about your past with regards to your involvement with the environment. What is your vision for the future, especially the conservation of the environment? Now we are faced with the global challenge of overcoming the COVID-19 pandemic. Your future?
COVID-19 has forced the entire world to be eco-friendly and to be conscious about environmental protection. It has made our task easy, in fact. So, in the next government, we have several upkeeping challenges. Firstly, in the recent past, Sri Lanka had been a country which has emphasized on use of renewable energy. But in the past, especially during the last 2 decades, we have shifted towards fossil energy, using diesel and coal for production of electricity. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa promised in his election manifesto to increase renewable energy component to 80%. And that's a workable promise, although it's a challenge. It's workable, and we have as a country in a tropical zone, we have sunlight throughout the day, at least 12 hours a day. Then throughout the year, we can use solar energy, then wind power, and dendro power using trees. There are different trees or wood as the energy source. We can have a dendro power. We have sea waves, optic energy. There are a lot of different renewable energy sources available and yet to be tapped. That's one thing we have to promote. Secondly, waste management. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, as the Secretary to Minister of Urban Development, has done a big contribution to solve the waste management problem, but it has not been solved it fully because rather than providing infrastructure, we have to change the people's thinking, our culture, in order to get rid of the waste heaps emerging all around the country. Thirdly, minimizing the use of paper. When I joined Monash University in 1990, one of the themes in the computer industry was, it was one of the main targets of the IT industry was to have paperless office by year 2000. Now we are in 2020. Unfortunately, we still use a lot of paper. I would prefer to use the word waste rather than use, because without papers, without destroying trees to produce papers, we can survive with the latest technology. As a software engineer, we could see we can we can get rid of use of paper by increasing the use of technology, especially IT technology, in our day-to-day life. Therefore, by encouraging using new technology in every aspect of the life, to minimize first and then to get rid of use of paper in our life. Those are the 3 main challenges I would like to address during the next term of our government.
The entire country is trying to survive the ravages of the deadly COVID-19 outbreak. We are all striving hard to regroup, restructure and rebuild. What is your view about the opportunities now being presented, especially to the local investors, entrepreneurs in this time, especially this challenging time?
A lot of people are very pessimistic about the present situation. When I talk to investors, business community, I myself have felt and realized that. But in my case, I see silver rays in the blue sky. There are a lot of new opportunities. Sri Lanka's geographical location had been a curse to us. India has invaded us 17 times. Thereafter, China, Chinese, Portuguese, Dutch and English invested and made Sri Lanka their colony because of its strategically important location. Because of COVID-19, we can now turn this curse through a blessing. We can re-establish ourselves as Asia's true hub. Since we did not exploit this advantage, two alternative hubs emerged from both left and right side of Sri Lanka, namely Dubai and Singapore. At this moment, both these countries are struggling with COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, they face different. They have gone through several lockdowns and they are yet to come out. Therefore, country which is now COVID-19 free, we can exploit this opportunity and re-establish ourselves as the true hub of Asia. Secondly, you may have heard that a lot of companies, especially US, European and Japanese companies, have decided to come out of China. I recently read a news that Japanese government has allocated 32 billion US dollars for their private sector companies to relocate them from coming out of China. We can attract those big companies. They were in China for two purposes. Firstly, since it's a huge market. Secondly, for their operational purpose, they should locate somewhere in the middle of Asia. They had their operational offices in China. We can invite those investors and big time companies to locate their operational offices and factories in Sri Lanka for several reasons. First of all, Sri Lanka has proved that we are having one of the best health systems in the world. You know, Sri Lanka's fatal rate of COVID-19 is just 0.5%, and it is the lowest in the entire world. Vietnam has the zero. Thereafter, we could say we are one of the best countries in the world. Then we have proved that we have a best health system, one of the best health systems in the world. Secondly, we are very educated, English literate, techno-friendly workforce. Thirdly,
Tech-savvy.
Techno-savvy. Fourthly, our location, once it's a true hub of Asia, right center of Asia. On the other hand, one of the biggest market in the world is just 32 kilometers away. India. If you take India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, or all India as a market, is bigger than China. If you take the population wise, cumulatively, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh have a bigger population than China. It means it's a bigger market than China, especially if we consider the growing middle class in India. Therefore, we can market Sri Lanka as the investors' alternative to China. On the other hand, we realized during the lockdown period, we realized that we have to be self-sufficient, at least in our essentials. Otherwise, we will have to starve during such pandemic situation, because a lot of countries will close down their airports and seaports. In this backdrop, Sri Lankan government encouraged people to firstly grow food crops as much as possible. Secondly, appreciate, develop and purchase Sri Lankan products. In the past, during the lockdown period, there's a saying that leisure makes creation. So during the lockdown period, we saw a lot of people, especially young people, coming out with a lot of new products. That innovation must be recognized and should be developed. I am of the view that government should establish a venture capital company exclusively for the purpose of financing innovation. If you come out with a new product, then government you come out with a new product and inform the government, look, this solve this particular problem. Then government should, you only have the technical knowledge, but government should provide financial expertise, management expertise, marketing expertise and funds. Then that company will come up and establish, then government can withdraw from that company and help somebody else.
Okay, those are
establishing a venture capital company.
Yeah, those are like very much rosy looking plans, maybe in the pipeline. How comfortable are you, especially under the administration of the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, that you can put all these ideas into practice? And you mentioned about the younger generation in the country. The youth Sri Lankan youth had been given so much of promises since 1948, and very less number of promises have seen the reality. Your thoughts on that?
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is known as a person who talk less and work more. He has never made attractive speeches and pledged the nation that I will eradicate terrorism in this country. Although other politicians who has made that promise had been struggling for more than 30 years to do that, but they failed. The one who talked less and the one who never made such a pledge made it a reality. Then, frankly, as a strong single nationalist, I also believe that LTT can be defeated. But being an environmentalist, I never believed that we can get rid of waste dumps we used to see all around Colombo, because we defeat a terrorist movement by force. But in order to get rid of waste dumps, you have to change the people's culture. That's something very difficult. But he did it within years. And forget all this. Look at his COVID-19 campaign. The so-called superpowers with having the latest technology and enormous of funds are struggling to get rid of unseen, unknown virus. But Sri Lankans are now rapidly coming back to their normal life because of his leadership. So he is not a person who makes promises, but he makes what he believes correct is a reality. Therefore, younger generation has already placed faith on him, and when he wanted to have a clean environment, you may have seen younger people believe him and responded to him. Voluntarily they came out and painted walls, and now they ensure that even politicians would not place posters on those walls, because President Rajapaksa set an example. Victor is running an election campaign without using posters. So young people have confidence in him. That's the key. Secondly, he is the one who delivered, and he has gained the confidence of the younger generation. And unfortunately, around 15% of his term is now over. It was rather wasted since there was no parliament to support him in his vision and his program. With that, he will of course meet aspirations of the youth. His key area is education. And during his campaign, he said, I don't want Sri Lankan youth to go out for their tertiary education. I will ensure during my tenure that all qualified Sri Lankan students will be graduated within Sri Lanka. It doesn't mean that anybody who loves to get foreign exposure and be independent and all that to go out of the country and get that education. But as long as you're going to be a graduate in Sri Lanka, you will be able to do that within Sri Lanka according to his vision. So I'm sure youth will have a better future, and youth themselves have started to believe. Usually, youth never believed politicians. Since youth have been repeatedly fooled by politicians for several decades, and youth have stopped believing politicians. Rather, they didn't want to associate with any politician or political ideology or a political party. They always wanted to criticize what politicians do. If you go to Facebook or any social media now, younger generation has come forward to defend President's action. They believe in him, so it's up to us to deliver what he promised and to maintain and keep the confidence of the youth won by him.
He made a strong claim saying that President already had 15% of his tenure, and up to some extent it was wasted because he didn't have the support of the parliament. But still, Sri Lanka managed to control the outbreak COVID-19 without a single support of the parliament. So if there is a will, there is always a way. Your comment on that?
We have been facing a lot of challenges in the post-independent history. Firstly, ethnic unrest time to time. Secondly, military uprising, firstly in the south by the JVP, secondly in the north by the Tamil separatists. Therefore, we have brought adequate laws to meet such challenges. For example, we have brought the quarantine ordinance in 1897, but a lot of European countries had to introduce such laws after facing COVID-19. Secondly, we had Essential Service Act, Government Essential Service Act, Prevention of Terrorist Act, so emergency laws, public security ordinance. Therefore, we had adequate laws to face COVID-19 situation as a country who has faced more than enough crises in the past. But in order to develop, we have to change the entire structure of the country to give it to achieve the development goals set by President Rajapaksa. For that, of course, we needed a lot of legislative amendments. In our President strongly believe we can't move forward with the present constitution. Therefore, we want to introduce a new constitution which reflects the aspirations of the nation. The present constitution is obsolete and it's not homegrown. Moreover, it doesn't reflect the aspirations of the nation. That's why he wants to introduce a new constitution. With all that, without legislative support, he may not be able to achieve what he intended to achieve.
The opposition also claimed that Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the president, is being disturbed by other Rajapaksas surrounding him. My question is, you recently mentioned about Kunchi Gotabaya, a team that would support the president having the same line of thinking. What is this?
Any leader need a good supporting team to achieve his entrusted to achieve. I will give a classic example is our cricket. We were able to win the cricket World Cup in 1996 under the leadership of Arjuna Ranatunga. Those days we could remember everybody used to hail and praise Arjuna Ranatunga as one of the best leaders in the country. Or one of the best leaders probably in the world. That's how we used to praise at that time.
Captain Cool.
Yes, Captain Cool. But imagine the situation, a team without Aravinda De Silva, Udaya Sanath Jayasuriya and Dushan Vas. I'm sure even Arjuna himself would admit that couldn't have achieved what he achieved without those members in his team. Any good leader needs a strong supporting team to achieve his goal. That is the case with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Once I described him as he is Sri Lanka's Lee Kuan Yew, he is Sri Lanka's Mahathir Mohamad. Not only me, most of Sri Lankans believe that he would take country to a new era. He will be able to make Sri Lanka a developed, prosperous country. In order to do this, he also needs a strong supporting team. What kind of a parliament that we should offer him? A parliament which think like him, work like him, behave like him, which has a taste. He always needs a high standard, very good quality, very high standard from anything he does. How can he achieve if his team thinks differently? That's why I say we need Kunchi Gotabaya's mean the people. We need a parliament of parliamentarians who thinks like him, works like him, behaves like him, and sets values like him. Then when entire parliament aligns with him, he will be able to easily achieve his goal and realize the dream of the entire nation.
On the 5th of August, the entire country is facing an important juncture of electing 225 members who would rule and take the country in the next 5+ years. Think afresh. How can you instill that idea into Colombo district?
You may have noted during the recent past, there is a strong social media campaign rejecting the entire 225 parliamentarians. They suggested to bomb parliament, and when there was a heavy rain, they wanted to be submerged. Then
They wanted COVID-19 positive people to visit Parliament.
Of course. But they forgot one simple fact. We never had a military government. We never had a dictator. Who were representing Parliament until 1st of March, they were elected by the people. They were selected by the people. Therefore, if parliamentarians were wrong, people were to blame for. They got deceived at election and they start blaming parliamentarians. Likewise, for last 72 years, I think people got deceived at election. They should admit the fact that they have made blunders at election. They have voted for the wrong people. They have chose wrong people. Then their thinking pattern should be changed. How they have seen politicians. Usually they have voted for the politicians who have visited their funerals, who have witnessed their weddings, politicians who talk to them on the road. If they talk, not only talk, they embrace and hug and embrace them. They are the best politicians. They have never judged politicians whether they have the capacity to work, whether they are sensitive to the problems of the people. Firstly, any good politician should be sensitive to the problems of the people. Secondly, he should have the intellectual capacity to find a solution for those problems. Thirdly, he should be brave enough to implement what he thinks correct. Fourthly, he should be a good manager to monitor and adjust the implementation. Thereafter, he should be a person who is not corrupt, who is not a thug, who abuse the power for his benefit. Those are the characteristics of Punch Gotabaya as far as I could see. People are now cursing Parliament, they are cursing our recent past since they made blunders at the past respective elections repeatedly. So that's why I wanted them to think afresh and make a different decision for them to produce Punch Gotabaya, for them to work with Gotabaya, President Gotabaya, to make this country a better place. Do you know the fact that Sri Lanka was one of the most developed countries in Asia, one of the two most developed countries in Asia by the time we gained independence in 1940. Those were Japan and Sri Lanka. Japan's per capita income was just $88. That of Sri Lanka was $87. We were behind Japan only by $1. And in 1965, when Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew became the founding Prime Minister of Singapore, he addressed the nation and pledged to make Singapore another Sri Lanka. That was a dream of Asia at that time. So what happened to us? Where we made the mistake? Mistake was we chose wrong people to decide our destiny. We didn't choose good managers, we didn't choose good leaders, we didn't choose people with capacity and the professional exposure. So by electing a good professional as the president, people have realized the difference. So I think they will repeat at the parliamentary election what they did at the presidential election.
With the current president Gotabaya Rajapaksa assuming duties as the president, he appointed a new set of ministers and gave responsibilities to his supporters to lead the country. But you were special because you refused a ministerial portfolio. Would it be the same this time around as well?
Well, let me explain what happened at that time. As you know, President was new to politics and he decided to appoint a cabinet of 15 members. At that time, there were 50 former cabinet ministers, including me, in our parliamentary group. So there was a huge competition to become one of those 15, and there was a huge pressure on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, appealing him to appoint a lot of parliamentarians, lobby, why don't you appoint me into your cabinet? And some we, some threatened, some people began to cry, so he was tremendously under pressure. So I thought I should set an example by refusing the ministerial portfolio and to set a new trend. And also to make him comfortable because he was tremendously under pressure. At least he could say, look, well, Udaya, after doing so much towards my victory, he says he doesn't want a cabinet portfolio. Why don't you be like him or something? He can use me to console or convince others to not to accept the portfolio. That's what I thought, and then I inform in writing that I don't expect ministerial portfolio, and I requested him to, if you have allocated a ministerial portfolio for me, give it to somebody else and make them happy. So this time I don't think that he's going to make a small cabinet. Anyway, I'm not going to refuse the ministerial portfolios as well.
At the beginning of this talk, I mentioned about the two predictions that you made, and what is your prediction for this time, especially for the parliament elections?
This is the most bold election I have faced because there is no opposition is visible at all. Have you seen any threat posed by the opposition to the government in this election campaign? No. Reason, the UNP has chosen SDP as their rival and vice versa. So because of this UNP, usually our traditional enemy, our rival was the UNP. But now UNP has split into two groups and fighting each other, and they are not interested in capturing power of the country and to establish a government. They are more interested in capturing power at their headquarters called Sirikota. Even yesterday, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca mentioned that their target is to come back to Sirikota and capture power. That's why we feel it's very bold. So we will have a very impressive victory at the forthcoming parliamentary election. Of course, 2/3 majority is our aim. I do admit it's a very difficult task. No government has obtained 2/3 majority in parliament after introduction of proportionate representative system. Therefore, it's a very difficult task. It's really challenging, but something we should somehow achieve in order to introduce a new constitution. President Rajapaksa is fully convinced that we will not be able to move forward with the present constitution. It is up to people to give us a mandate with 2/3 parliamentary majority. Then only we can make real changes, visible changes to the society. If people decided to express their gratitude towards President Rajapaksa for saving the entire nation, when the rest of the world is struggling to save their lives from COVID-19, I'm sure he would be able to get to a parliament with 2/3 majority.
So thank you very much, the leader of the Fruitful Hello at the same time, the Colombo district candidate for the Sri Lanka Pujitana Perumuda, Mr. Udaya Gammanpila, sharing your thoughts and your views, especially on how you can instill think afresh mindset, especially to the Colombo district. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.